The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Today's episode is presented by PBS Charlotte's Unspun program, helping you learn what politicians are thinking but not saying, hosted by former Governor Pat McCrory. Welcome to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. I'm Ashley Fay, managing editor of the Charlotte Ledger. To find out more about the Charlotte Ledger, visit thecharlotteledger.com. For this episode, we are proud to partner with ULI Charlotte. The mission of the Urban Land Institute is to shape the future of the built environment for transformative impact in communities worldwide. ULI Charlotte carries forward that mission by serving the public and private sectors of Charlotte, Piedmont, and Western North Carolina with pragmatic land use expertise and education. I'm joined today by Adam McMichael, Managing Director of Republic Development Group, and Paul Zarian, Carolina's Managing Director at Hines, to discuss why their firms are investing in Charlotte and what they see for the city's future. We're getting into what national developers look for when entering a market and how Charlotte stacks up against other high-growth cities across the country. Adam, maybe let's start with you.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. Thank you for letting me come today. I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about what Republic's working on. I'm Adam McMichael with Republic Development Group, a part of the Republic family of companies. We're working on a few projects at different stages in Charlotte. We're on the doorstep of permits for our project off of Central Avenue and Plaza Midwood. It's a pure apartment building, 350 plus units. And we're currently marketing a major mixed-use project with our partners at Park Ministries adjacent to Bojangles Coliseum off of Independence Boulevard. I guess there's a third project as well, and I try to help in any way that I can. Our development team that is responsible for Charlotte's Gateway Station. We're looking to bring a new multimodal transportation center to Uptown Charlotte.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And Paul, I know Hines is no stranger to Charlotte, but please, I'd love to hear what you guys are up to these days here.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. We have 3 investments in Charlotte today. We acquired Blue South, which is a 550 unit build to rent community about 2 years ago. That's off of South Boulevard and Westinghouse. And then last fall, we acquired Birkdale Village, which is a mixed use property in Huntersville. And that same week, coincidentally, we announced rezoning for a mixed-use development in South Park.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much again for taking the time. Obviously, you both are doing these great big mixed-use projects here, whether it's the park site, whether it's some of the things you just referenced. Birkdale Village is obviously a flagship name here in the Charlotte region. But I'd love to get into why now for both of your firms. You know, Charlotte has a lot of capital chasing deals, plenty of experienced local developers and entitled land. So what did each of you see in the Charlotte market that made you say, as individual firms, we need to plant our flag here now, whether that's, you know, when you entered the market in the 2000s or more recently with Republic? Paul, would love to just kind of hear why Hines has sort of been doubling down on Charlotte lately.
You know, it looks like we've made all of our moves at once, but the reality is in this industry, things don't change overnight. It takes a long time for projects to come together. We've actually been trying to get in the market really in earnest since 2020. To your point, we did have some office acquisitions that we made back in the mid 2000s that we had since sold in the mid 2010s. But you know, a lot of things that we chased in the past few years, we fell just short. And through that process, though, we really got to know the market. The market got to know us. We tried to conduct ourselves in a way where it would be conducive to establishing a reputation here and building those connections and just becoming more local. And we've just been very fortunate that what has come together has happened in a really meaningful way in the past 2 years.
Was there any specific point for you guys as a firm that you looked at as Charlotte from a population standpoint, from a demand driver standpoint, that made Hines say, these moves make sense for us?
Certainly, Charlotte has all of those characteristics. We all know that it's been, one of the leaders in the country in population growth and income growth. So certainly it makes it an attractive market in which to invest. But when you compare what we've done in the past to what we're doing now, I actually think it speaks to more about how Hines has changed rather than how Charlotte has changed. We used to be exclusively an office developer, and then we made some office acquisitions. And, the past 3 years, what we've done is we've acquired build to rent, which is living. We've bought mixed use and kind of retail-led mixed use. And then in South Park, we're planning a 2-phase project with a high-rise multifamily component with an office component all over ground floor retail that's done in a very placemaking forward context. So, we try to evolve with the market, provide the products that our customers really gravitate towards. And that's kind of how we see things going forward.
Adam, switching over to you, you're not a stranger to the Charlotte market, but Republic is kind of a new name here for Charlotte. So can you talk a little bit about the process of why Republic wanted to enter Charlotte and what that looked like?
Yeah, sure. I think the credit for that goes to our founding principal, Richard Kramer, and Bob Mendelson as a second hand to Richard. Really the opportunity to build a multimodal transportation hub here in Charlotte really got their attention several years ago. Public-private partnerships is something that Richard and Bob have done throughout their career, and so it was a natural fit to start with that. I've been fortunate to kind of build on that platform that started with that several years ago. And that's allowed me to kind of have the leverage to go out and find new projects here in the area. My family and I moved from San Francisco 4 years ago, and a large part of coming to Charlotte was really trying to find a market that I thought had real legs as a development market. And Charlotte checked a lot of boxes for us as we were considering a move back to the East Coast. Just the robust job growth and population boom here speaks for itself over the last 5 years. I think the population has grown, 10% in the last 5 years. It's roughly 90,000 new residents moving here, and that can support a lot of office and real estate development. And so that caught my eye, and Charlotte became the place for us to move our family, and leveraging on Richard's foundation of Charlotte Gateway system, or Charlotte Gateway project, has really helped us to create our name here.
Sure. And something I recently learned is that Republic Development is actually based here. Can you talk about the process and thought behind that, and why Republic Development specifically is headquartered here?
Yeah, sure. So, Richard, our principal, Mr. Kramer, runs his business with several different companies, as we've kind of, I and Republic Development has kind of grown our foundation here. We've accepted the opportunity to kind of grow a new business for him based here in Charlotte. I don't think we'll always do projects here in Charlotte, but over the last several years, we've really been keyed into Charlotte as a market for investment over others that we constantly look at, such as Nashville and Raleigh and Charleston, for instance.
Awesome. Well, this is a good segue, I think, to my next question, which is, how is the Charlotte commercial real estate market maybe different from some of the other markets you all work in? I don't think Hines and Republic are strangers across the Sun Belt and our peer cities, but certainly you all have done work nationally, and your firms have. Maybe, Paul, I'll start with you. How does Charlotte maybe compare as a commercial real estate market to some of those other markets Hines invests in?
In terms of dynamics, there's more similarities than differences. Here, I'll speak to Raleigh. I'm responsible for the Carolinas and Tennessee, so maybe that's the one that I'm most familiar with. And what's great about both Charlotte and the Triangle is that they both have these incredible demand drivers. But when you boil down to it, they're very different too. Raleigh is driven by life sciences and tech. Charlotte obviously has the great kind of historical financial services and corporate base. But even how the cities are set up are quite different. Charlotte's a much more traditional city with a traditional CBD and kind of surrounding neighborhoods that have gained in vitality over the years. While Raleigh, you could really think of as a series of nodes, and each one of those nodes has their own flavor. They tend to be a little bit more horizontal focused than vertical. But what both cities really have in common is this really unique, positive culture. Both cities celebrate economic development. They celebrate success. They're also just reputational oriented cities where what you do, how you treat people matters. And each city also has its own very local real estate community as well. So for us, it's been wonderful to become a part of that.
Awesome. Adam, any thoughts about how Charlotte maybe compares to other markets Republic works in?
Yeah, sure. As Paul speaks, I just find myself nodding my head constantly. I think some of the things that he's pointing out about Raleigh are the same things that we see. I think, the recent appeal and focus on Charlotte has been for a few specific reasons. It's probably the same reasons that other developers are participating in the housing boom here. The development equation really works. The rents, the values, the zoning all tend to line up here and provided a great opportunity for developers to thrive. One thing that's maybe a little bit overlooked in Charlotte that I appreciate is the zoning regulations and the lowish demands on new development. The code and the general plan are really easy to understand since the update of the UDO, and it provides a really clear template for what's possible here. And so for a developer like me, it's easy to quickly evaluate a new opportunity, and it's easier and less costly than maybe some other markets. One thing that I see in Charlotte versus some markets like Raleigh, I guess as Paul is speaking, or Nashville, Charlotte seems to have a larger population at the high end of the income spectrum, and I think there's probably more elasticity in rents here, which is what developers need to feel comfortable with to cover the high costs of new housing. And so it's become a real focus for us, really for that reason. I think the rents have a long ways to go here. I echo Paul's discussion on Raleigh. Housing can be less concentrated. It's got great infrastructure, which kind of creates opportunities to build housing in many different areas of Raleigh. Low barriers to supply can depress rents a little bit and changes the equation somewhat for when we're looking at providing luxury product in urban areas. I continue to look in Nashville. I think there's a great opportunity. A lot of folks have made a lot of money in Nashville developing apartments in the last 10 years, but there can be large fluctuations in value and rent growth. And, in periods where you have 10% rent growth and then a few years later you have 20% vacancy, it can be a harder market to predict. But if you can figure it out, you can stand to have a lot of success. What I like about Charlotte is its rent growth is plodding and pretty direct, not necessarily a heart monitor like Nashville could be considered.
Yeah, that's all a really good point. I'm curious if either of you have anything to share about what surprised you most about Charlotte, doing business here, doing deals here, something you maybe didn't expect about the city since you guys are both new-ish, I guess, to the market. Anything you can share on that front?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has really stood out to me is the building relationships around here. I think, I'm a developer just like many folks in the area, but what I've found is our consultants are great. A few of our consultants have become great mentors for me here in the area. And just that camaraderie where everybody's cheering for everybody else. And we all might have a different take on things, but I think there's enough room for everybody, and there's good camaraderie around that.
I couldn't agree more. I think because at the end of the day, Charlotte's a big city, but it's also a small city in terms of its community. You're going to be running into the same people over and over again. So how you treat people really matters.
We'll be right back to the conversation. Today's episode is presented by PBS Charlotte's Unspun program, discussing what politicians are thinking but not saying. Right now in Charlotte, we're dealing with some capital challenges. I don't think that's limited to Charlotte, but it's certainly folks I speak with in Charlotte are dealing with that right now. We have a lot of apartment supply that's currently getting absorbed, I would say. And then our other issues around affordability with housing and lags in building out infrastructure. Certainly, these are all hot button topics right now in Charlotte. What is an opportunity here that you think others are either underestimating or getting flat out wrong? And maybe, Adam, I'll start with you on that.
Sure. I think we all have our different ideals of how the business works. One of the things that I've been able to get comfortable with, again, is rents on the higher end of the markets, and really just being laser focused on location or creating destinations that where different uses can work off of each other. I think, you get towards the end of some of these real estate cycles, and the boundaries of potential properties continues to expand. We've seen South End continue to expand south, or North NODA continue to expand north, for instance. And what I try to focus on are the areas inside of those bands, where there's great locations and maybe underutilized real estate that you can turn around and find value in.
And it's a great question, because a lot of those themes that you hit on are exactly the ones that are being discussed here in Charlotte, but also elsewhere. And maybe even stepping back for a moment, you compare Charlotte to many other cities around the country. And while Charlotte has a long and storied history, a lot of that growth has happened in the last 50 or so years. And you compare that to the New Yorks, Bostons, even Charlestons of the world. And those cities have had centuries to mature, to get placemaking right, to really set their neighborhoods and how those cities work. And that's just happening right now in Charlotte. And the city has really benefited from that, from the development community that's been here and helped make the city what it is over the last 50 years. But I also think there's room for the city to continue to grow and continue to come into its own like those other markets have. In terms of investment opportunities, people continue to move here. We've seen that certainly before COVID, but especially since COVID, incomes have risen. So to us, that's really encouraged us to invest in retail, where you're making that continued bet on the maturation of the market here. Retail also is a wonderful canvas because it drives demand for other uses too. Office customers, residential customers are all attracted to being in those walkable environments. So that's truly a bet on growth here in Charlotte. And then the last one I'll give you is office. Office has certainly been out of favor for the past couple of years, but given the in-migration that's occurred here, not just on the population side, but also from the corporate world, the market is quite strong, and there's a clear bifurcation between what's going on the fundamental side and how capital markets are responding to that, and that creates opportunity.
Absolutely. And given where we are in our growth cycle as a city and as a market, and you guys have worked in other markets that are maybe past where we are as a city, are there any lessons learned or things that Charlotte maybe needs to be cognizant of as we manage our growth and we continue to see demand drivers for all these things, whether it's office, retail, apartments, anything from a bigger city or a peer city that Charlotte maybe needs to be cognizant of as we think about our growth?
Yeah, I just think that as the cycle starts over, the best projects are the ones that will get done first. And those that have the early jump may be able to take advantage of lower costs in a supply constrained market once those projects are completed in the next few years. And so, again, we've been really focused on location and trying to create really great quality projects. In my shoes, blind luck, certainly, but it's played to my benefit. Just not having any projects in the last cycle, I think, has helped me quite a bit. It's allowed me to lean in when other companies maybe have pulled back somewhat. What happens is those developers purchased property or started developments in the last 3 years are having a hard time harvesting profits than they might have anticipated. And so perhaps aren't as liquid to start new projects now. And because of when I got started, again, I didn't plan this, but because of when I got started, I think it's created an opportunity for me in Republic here in Charlotte.
From the city's perspective, people vote with their feet. And clearly people are voting to move to Charlotte. So I think you can look at what Charlotte has done historically and try to replicate some of that. And you can also look at, honestly, what some of Charlotte's peer cities are doing and not replicate a lot of that. So I think learning also involves learning what not to do. Specifically, I would say with growth, that creates opportunity. It also creates challenges. And in order to respond to that growth, you've got to continue to invest in infrastructure. There's a huge debate right now, obviously, around I-77. That's been well documented, and there's the only way to continue to grow the city is to grow the city's infrastructure base, so people can continue to get around and have that quality of life that we all aspire to have.
Absolutely. You mentioned this earlier, both of you, but Charlotte's obviously very relationship driven, very entrepreneurial, and still very local. We always say it's getting to become a big city, but still feels like a small town in a lot of ways. So especially as you guys are relative newcomers, or at least with Hines's perspective, you've more recently deepened your relationship with Charlotte. How do you enter a market like this without feeling like an outsider? You both talked about the importance of relationships earlier, but how do you do that in practice? And what's your experience been like, I guess, with Hines and Republic, kind of deepening your relationship with Charlotte and the folks who do work here? Maybe Paul, I'll start with you.
That's such an insightful question, because that just hits our business on the head. I mean, real estate is both a global and a local business in so many different ways. So in order to enter a market, you have to do something a little bit differently, and you have to contribute in your own way. So we're trying to do that. For us, it's kind of leaning into the fact that we can do both acquisitions and development. We can operate across all product types, and perhaps just have a different perspective or a different way to contribute. And that's not to say that everything that's happened here, or anything that's happened here, isn't up to our standard by any means. I mean, we're only here because of the work that so many other people have done to create these opportunities for us. And we're so grateful for that. And then to the second point of that, you do have to be local. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that our first development project is a partnership with a longstanding Charlotte family. And, we have the privilege to be, part of their legacy that they're creating here. So it comes down to just being a great partner, how you treat people, and then providing a perspective that can add value to someone else. And hopefully if you do all of those things, then that creates opportunities for us as well.
Great partnerships can be an awesome way to start development and start companies here in the area. I think again, our company had the opportunity to work early on with the city and NCDOT and CATS, and help plan the Gateway Station, as we're still in planning for that. And that really opened a lot of doors for me, even recently with our Plaza Midwood project. And I saw a lot of the same faces as I was discussing creating what will become Central Station on the Silver Line going east. Those introductions and meetings kind of compound and can create opportunities for you and make things a little bit easier. And so working off the platform that the organization started here has helped me quite a bit.
Well, if we're sitting here 10 years from now, what Charlotte neighborhood or corridor that maybe isn't on everyone's radar today are we talking about? Or do we see become maybe one of the most bustling parts of town? What areas of town maybe are you each quietly paying the most attention to right now?
Yeah, we've made a bet here on the east side with a couple of our investments. Plaza Midwood certainly is up and coming market. A lot of the folks that are moving into Plaza Midwood may be moving out of South End, for instance, and enjoying lower rents. I think that's an opportunity here in the city. Further, again, as these bands of development continue to expand around the city, I think there are overlooked areas that have great access to the city, easy commutes and quick commutes to jobs. I like the east side for that as well. The hospital developments and the office medical facilities on the east side continue to expand. Those are terrific jobs. We've seen headquarters announced, for instance, in Plaza Midwood. So that speaks to me quite a bit. And I don't know if we always planned. We knew all those things were coming, but certainly the access for the east side has kind of paid off, I believe, or will pay off in our developments over the next few years.
Great.
And I can't say that it's under the radar, but we are very bullish on South Park. it's really a place that has reached a new level since COVID. It's convenient to where a lot of people live. It has the amenities, has the residential embedded in the district, has the office. So it's truly, it always has been a live, work, play community. But really over the past few years, it's reached that next level. And it's in the process of transitioning from more of a suburban district to an urban district. So although I can't say it's off the radar, there's incredible things happening. And then the last point I'll make on South Park is just the leadership that community has, with Adam Rue at South Park Community Partners, with SPAN, and some of the things that they're doing with micro-mobility, and that's just the start of it, that are truly innovative. Even when we look nationwide, it's just remarkable. So when you have the leadership, when you have the ingredients of being accessible, amenitized, those are the type of places that we really believe will reach that next level long term.
It's funny you both say such different parts of the city, but like in conversations I have with folks in the industry, those are areas that seem to get brought up a lot. So I feel like you're probably onto something there. Considering you guys have done work in so many other markets, or at least your firms have, what are some of the things you would like to take either from those projects or things that you've done in other cities that maybe you'd love to bring to Charlotte, or you think could be a good fit for Charlotte, knowing it's a different market in some ways, but we're still new to a lot of the types of things we're starting to see come as far as development and architecture and how people are mixing uses even. So is there anything that either Republic or Hines have done in other markets that you'd like to see here in Charlotte?
Possibly with Republic, certainly with the last company I worked with in the Bay Area, Prometheus Real Estate Group. One of the key things that I took away from that experience was trying to avoid apartments becoming such a commodity. I think when we attacked a project at Prometheus, we really designed a project from inside out, so to speak. We were always branding for specific users and doing the best we could throughout the community to nail that, having a really tight attention to detail, and providing services that made residents want to stay year in and year out. I think, it can be a race to the bottom as costs go up, and if apartments kind of become a commodity, you're just like everybody else. And so one of the things we really focus on at Republic is creating unique places that are driven by brand ideas.
Great.
And for us, our founder, Jerry Hines, in the 1960s and 1970s became known for pairing great architecture with commercial development. And that resulted in trophy office buildings being developed throughout many cities in the country and then ultimately around the world. And more recently, especially post-COVID, we've thought about trophy product a little bit differently. And we've even started maybe referring to it differently. So instead of trophy, which is something that sits on the shelf, you admire it from afar, we think of great real estate as being magnet real estate. So magnet office or magnet mixed use, and a magnet is something that really attracts people and our customers to. And that often takes the form of these mixed use projects. And, trophy can be magnet, but magnet doesn't have to just be trophy. We developed a mixed use project just up the road in Cary called Fenton, where the first phase delivered in 2022. It's a multi-phased mixed-use project, and you could kind of think of it as another Birkdale Village, getting started with ground floor retail and apartments and an office above. And in that case, we spent a lot of time and effort and budget on the ground plane itself. So it's really the first 20 feet is what people experience. So we brought in consultants to help us think about that. Public art was a big component of that as well. And then figuring out the right retail merchandising mix that helped activate the project throughout, all times of the day and evening was a big area of focus for us. And even though not all of our projects have to have that level of retail necessarily, the lessons from that project do extend to how we program the ground plane at everything we do.
Great. We talked about a lot of the reasons why you all like being in Charlotte and are excited about Charlotte, but I am curious, what do each of you think is the biggest challenge maybe to getting deals done in Charlotte right now? You both are spearheading some very complicated mixed use, sometimes multi-partner deals. Adam, maybe I'll start with you. I know the Gateway Station project is one that has been in the works for a long time. Park Expo is another one a lot of folks talk about. So any challenges specifically you wanted to call out there as far as getting those deals across the finish line?
Yeah, I can't really say that development specifically in Charlotte is more challenging than development throughout the country right now. I think we're realizing some of the same pains that everybody else is throughout the country, shortage of capital, and kind of recalibrating to a new interest rate environment, recalibrating to new values throughout real estate. I think it's more of a macro thing than it is a micro thing. I think what I'm fortunate that I think here in Charlotte, you can figure those things out and you can find investors. I often tell people that there's really no other market in the country I'd rather be developing property in right now than Charlotte, just with the robust job growth that we've seen here and kind of the predictable regulations and predictable costs. I think it's a great platform for development.
I couldn't agree more. A lot of our challenges are macro related, and specifically the higher cost of capital, which makes it more difficult to get development projects financed. And, for us, that creates, if development is more expensive than what projects are trading for that are, stabilized acquisitions, that means that you take the environment for what it is and you pivot. And that's led us to being more active on the acquisitions front over the past few years. With development, these projects take so long, so you can't time the cycle perfectly. So you do need to continue to try to make some of those development projects work. But it's absolutely more challenging than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, that's certainly the sentiment I keep hearing. And I guess the big question, I'm not sure if either of you can answer, but, when does that start to ease? When do we start to see that to start to evolve? I certainly don't know, but I know it's something everyone's kind of anxiously keeping an eye on, and we'll see what happens. Before we wrap up here, let's end with a few quick hits. Adam, I'll go ahead and start with you. Where do you derive inspiration?
For me, real estate development, kind of an altruistic career. I enjoy the process of providing housing, increasing the supply of housing, lowering the cost of housing, and really creating unique places to live. And there might be a second thing. I just have a never-ending curiosity and will to problem solve. I enjoy the process of studying market shifts, understanding how people actually want to live, work, and gather, and finding opportunities in that. So that's my inspiration.
I would say, through travel, you can learn so much, and you can go to larger cities, you can go travel internationally, and connect the dots. And, when you do that, there's pattern recognition. You see something and you think, hey, that might work in Charlotte. Or maybe that's something to avoid in Charlotte. So oftentimes what's wonderful about the country we live in, the entire world, if you want to expand it that far, is that you have these opportunities to go to different laboratories and see what's worked and bring the best back to the communities where we live.
What is a neighborhood or development outside of the Carolinas that both of you think got it right in terms of development or architecture quality, even placemaking? Paul, anything come to mind?
Oh, absolutely. It's tough to just narrow it down to one. I love kind of the intimate settings in large cities. So, something that's a little bit more close to home. If you go to Nashville, there's a project called Neuhoff, which is an adaptive reuse plus new construction project in Germantown, and they've really embraced kind of the local history of what that project used to be. And when you have that level of authenticity, I think it just helps a project gets to that next level. And then looking internationally, in a place like Melbourne, Australia, they've done an incredible job programming alleys throughout their central business district. And they've become gathering spaces, they've become public art spaces and destinations in their own right. So when you're in the midst of this big city, you have this intimate social experience. And the contrast between that is unique and feels great. So those were two examples that I'd point to.
Awesome. Adam, anything come to mind?
Yeah, sure. We went through a process over the last 12 months or so, in the process of planning and looking for inspiration for our park development, and landed on a couple of different developments, or visited a couple of different developments that I just found all inspiring. I really like the sports entertainment concept of the Battery in Atlanta. Mosaic by Edens in Fairfax, Virginia is a great place to hang with good shopping. Edens is a company that I adore. I think they do incredible work. I would keep it in the Carolinas, though, and give Paul a nod. I think he's done a great job with the Fenton, kind of a world-class development there in Cary, and a place that makes a lot of sense for that environment.
Awesome. And final question, what is an underrated city we all in Charlotte should go visit?
I'd make it really easy, and it's just down the road. I'll go with Greenville. And Greenville has evolved into this incredible place. It's not by accident either, which I think makes it even more special. Yes, they do have the good fortune of having a river and a waterfall right off their main street downtown, but it took vision from the public sector. It took execution from the private sector, and that partnership really helped make that community what it is. And it just keeps striving for more. And what you see around, many other great cities throughout the country is sometimes when they reach a certain level, they become content with what it is. And because it is great, they don't want to change. But in Greenville's case, they keep wanting to make the city better and better. And it's a true inspiration for many of our communities here.
I assume based on your description, you mean Greenville, South Carolina, but just wanted to confirm.
That's right.
Perfect. Great. Adam?
Yeah, I echo that. I think Greenville's a great place. I grew up in the upstate of South Carolina. I've visited Greenville all my life, where my grandparents were, and have seen that city really come along. I think that's a great example of a small town that's really figured it out and has become a great city as well. I always go back to San Francisco. I just enjoy the vibes I get from San Francisco and Northern California in general. It's just such a unique place here in our country. And everything you can do, within 2 hours of San Francisco is really world class, and it's so unique for this country that I think if you haven't been there, you should try it.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, Adam and Paul, for sharing your time and perspective today. It's a great conversation, and really appreciate you taking the time here. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. For more information about the Charlotte Ledger, visit thecharlotteledger.com. This episode was produced by Lindsay Banks. Today's episode was presented by PBS Charlotte's Unspun program that tells you what politicians are often thinking but not saying.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.